Lee Taman stared out the wide window of Kepler Station and watched the alien ships floating in space. The Corvani vessels looked like giant metal spears with sharp edges that could cut through anything. Their dark hulls reflected the distant starlight like mirrors made of black glass. Each ship was twice as big as the largest human battleship. "They are not like us," said Park Soo-jin as she walked up beside him. She wore her best diplomatic uniform with the Earth Alliance symbol on her chest. Her face looked calm, but Taman could see worry in her eyes. "The reports from the border colonies say they fight like wild animals. No mercy, no prisoners." Taman nodded slowly. He had read those same reports. 3 human settlements had tried to make peace with the Corvani Empire. All 3 were now empty ruins floating in space. The aliens seemed to understand only one language: violence. "But they asked for this meeting," Taman said. "That has to mean something. Maybe. Or maybe they want to watch us beg before they destroy our worlds." The communication system made a soft sound. A voice spoke through the speakers. "All diplomatic teams report to Conference Room 7. The Corvani delegation has arrived." Soo-jin straightened her uniform and checked her data pad. As the lead diplomat for Earth Alliance, she would do most of the talking. Taman was here as a scientific advisor. His job was to study the aliens and help understand their technology. His background in xenobiology and military engineering made him useful in these situations. They walked through the long corridors of Kepler Station. The place was built by 3 different species working together: humans, the peaceful Centauri traders, and the insect-like vegan collective. It was supposed to be neutral ground where any species could meet safely. Conference Room 7 was huge. The ceiling stretched up 3 stories high, and the walls were made of clear metal that showed the stars outside. A long table sat in the center with chairs for both human and alien bodies. The human team was already there. Admiral Chen looked nervous. Dr. Martinez kept checking her medical scanner. Commander Torres had his hand resting on his sidearm even though weapons were not allowed in the room. Then the doors on the far side opened. The Corvani walked in like they owned the entire station. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their skin was dark gray with thick plates covering their arms and chest like natural armor. Red eyes glowed in faces that looked like they were carved from stone. Each one moved with the smooth grace of a trained killer. The leader wore more armor than the others. Golden symbols covered his chest plate. He was easily 7 feet tall, and his presence filled the room like a dark cloud. "I am High Commander Vextar of the Corvani 3rd Battle Fleet," he said. His voice was deep and rough like grinding metal. The words came through a translation device on his belt. "You are the humans who think they can claim our territory." Soo-jin stood up straight. "I am Ambassador Park Soo-jin of Earth Alliance. We are here to discuss the border disputes and find a peaceful solution." Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it had no joy in it. "Peace. You use that word like it has meaning. The strong take what they want. The weak serve or die. This is the way of the universe." "That is one way," Soo-jin said calmly, "but not the only way. Humans prefer to build rather than destroy, to create rather than conquer." "And yet you fight well when pushed," said another Corvani. This one was smaller and wore robes instead of armor. "Our scouts report that your colonies resist with unexpected skill. Your ships use tactics we have not seen before. Your soldiers do not break even when facing certain death." Taman studied the robed alien. Unlike the commander, this one seemed more interested in learning than threatening. He was probably a scientist or advisor. "Humans adapt quickly," Soo-jin said. "It is one of our strengths." "Perhaps," Vextar said. "But adaptation only delays the inevitable. The Corvani Empire has conquered 47 star systems. We have faced species much older and more advanced than yours. All have fallen before our might." He gestured to one of his soldiers. The alien activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Images appeared showing different worlds and different alien species. All of them were marked with red symbols that probably meant conquered or destroyed. Each of these civilizations thought they were special. Vextar continued. Each believed their technology or their wisdom or their unity would save them. All were wrong. Soo-jin did not look away from the images. Taman could see entire cities in ruins, planets stripped of their resources, populations enslaved or worse. The Corvani did not just defeat their enemies, they erased them completely. "However," Vextar said, "the Corvani Code of Honor offers one alternative to total war. It is ancient tradition dating back thousands of years. We are listening, Sujin said. Trial by champion. Each side presents their deadliest warrior or weapon. They fight until one is destroyed. The winning species claims dominion over the disputed territory. The losing species submits or faces complete annihilation. The room fell silent. Taman could hear his own heartbeat. Around the table, the other humans looked at each other with growing alarm. This was not what they had hoped for. And if we refuse this trial? Sujin asked. Then we return to our ships and begin the systematic destruction of every human world, Vextar said without emotion. Your choice is simple. Face our champion and possibly live, or refuse and certainly die. The robed Corvani stepped forward. I am Mordak, Chief of Biological Sciences. With the commander's permission, I will show you what you would face. Vextar nodded. Mordak touched a control on his belt. The doors at the far end of the room opened with a loud hiss. Something began to move in the darkness beyond. First came the sound, a clicking noise like massive claws on metal. Then came the smell, something wild and dangerous that made every human in the room take a step backward. Finally came the creature itself. It was huge, 4 meters tall and covered in crystalline plates that shifted color like oil on water. Multiple eyes glowed with hungry intelligence. Razor-sharp appendages clicked against the floor with each step. When it breathed, the sound was like steam escaping from a broken pipe. The creature moved with fluid grace despite its size. Every movement spoke of barely contained violence. This was something that had been born to kill and had been very good at its job for a very long time. Behold the apex predator of Korvax Prime, Mordak said with obvious pride, enhanced over centuries to be the perfect weapon. It has never known defeat. 47 worlds have sent their greatest champions against it. All have died. The creature turned its multiple eyes toward the humans. Its carapace shifted to deep red, probably the color of aggression. Several of the humans reached for weapons that were not there. The trial will take place in 3 days, Vextar said. Choose your champion wisely. It will be the last choice your species makes. Taman stared at the massive predator and felt something strange. While everyone else saw a monster, he saw something different. The way it moved. The way it held its head. The pattern of color changes across its shell. I volunteer, he said quietly. The room exploded in shocked voices. Sujin grabbed his arm. Taman, no. You cannot be serious. But he was looking directly at Vextar. I will face your champion. Taman sat alone in his quarters staring at the data screens that covered the wall. For 6 hours he had been watching recordings of the creature from every angle. The security cameras in the conference room had captured everything. Now he played the footage over and over in slow motion. Most people saw a monster when they looked at the beast. Taman saw something else entirely. The door chimed and Sujin entered without waiting for permission. Her face was red with anger and worry. Have you lost your mind? She demanded. That thing will tear you apart in seconds. You saw what it did to 47 other champions. What makes you think you can survive when they could not? Taman paused the video. On the screen, the creature stood frozen in time with its crystalline plates showing a deep blue color. Look at this, he said, pointing to the image. What color is its shell right now? Blue, so what? And here. He switched to another moment from the recording. Now it is green, and here it turns yellow. Sujin crossed her arms. It changes colors. Many Earth animals do that too. Chameleons change color to hide. Cuttlefish change color to hunt. But look at when it changes. Taman pulled up a timeline chart on another screen. Blue when Vextar first spoke about the trial. Green when Mordak talked about its victories. Yellow when it first saw us humans. I still do not understand. Blue means sadness or fear. Green means pain or discomfort. Yellow means curiosity. Taman stood up and walked to the window. This creature is not showing aggression. It is showing emotions. Sujin stared at him. Taman, you are guessing. You cannot know what those colors mean. Every species is different. Maybe. But I studied xenobiology for 8 years before joining the military. I have seen emotional color patterns in dozens of species. This creature follows the same basic rules. He turned back to the screens and pulled up more footage. Watch its body language when Mordak calls it the perfect weapon. See how its head drops slightly? That is shame. Watch its eyes when it looks at the humans. They focus and track our movements, but not like a predator studying prey, more like someone trying to communicate. Even if you are right, Sujin said, It does not change the fact that this thing has killed every champion sent against it. Emotional or not, it is still deadly. But why does it kill? Taemin asked. What if it does not want to fight? What if it has no choice? Sujin sat down heavily in a chair. You are talking about taking the biggest risk in human history, based on a guess about color patterns. Not just color patterns. Taemin pulled up biological scan data from the medical sensors. Dr. Martinez got partial readings when the creature was in the room. Look at its brain activity. The scan showed a complex web of neural patterns. Most of it was normal for a large intelligent creature. But there were strange areas that pulsed with different rhythms. These sections do not match the rest of its brain patterns, Taemin explained. They look artificial, like implants or modifications. Modifications for what? Control, pain, forced aggression. Taemin highlighted several areas on the scan. I have seen similar patterns in military research. Ways to make soldiers more violent or to override their natural instincts. Sujin leaned forward to study the data more closely. You think they are forcing it to fight? I think this creature is a prisoner, not a weapon. The Corvani have turned something intelligent and possibly peaceful into their perfect killer. The communication system activated. A Corvani voice spoke through the translator. Human champion, you are granted access to the holding area to observe your opponent. Standard preparation protocols apply. Taemin stood up immediately. That is my chance to prove this theory. Absolutely not. Sujin grabbed his arm. I am not letting you get within 100 meters of that thing. I need to see it up close. I need to understand what we are really dealing with. Then I am coming with you. Sujin, if I am wrong about this creature, I do not want you anywhere near it when I find out. She looked into his eyes for a long moment. They had been partners for 3 years, both in work and in life. She knew that expression. He had made up his mind and nothing would change it. Fine, she said finally. But we bring security teams and medical support, and we maintain safe distances. 2 hours later, they stood outside the creature's holding area deep in the lower levels of Kepler Station. The Corvani had built a special containment unit using their own technology. Energy barriers hummed with power. Warning signs in multiple languages covered every surface. The beast has been sedated for transport and containment, said the Corvani guard. It will not be fully active for another few hours. You may observe from the outer chamber. Taemin nodded and walked through the security doors. The outer chamber had thick windows that looked into the creature's cell. The space beyond was large enough for something the size of a small spacecraft. The creature lay curled in the far corner. Even sleeping, it was magnificent and terrible. Its crystalline plates rose and fell with each breath. Occasionally, its colors would shift, mostly dark blues and grays. It is dreaming, Taemin said softly. How can you know that? Asked Commander Torres, who led the security team. The color patterns. They match dream states I have seen in other species, and look at its eye movements under the closed lids. As they watched, the creature's colors shifted to bright yellow and green. Its body jerked slightly and it made a soft sound that the translator could not interpret. Nightmare, Taemin said. It is having a nightmare. The creature's eyes opened suddenly. All 6 of them focused immediately on the humans watching through the window. Its body tensed and the colors shifted rapidly through red and orange, warning colors. But then something strange happened. The creature tilted its head and studied Taemin's face. The red faded to yellow. Curiosity again. I want to go inside, Taemin said. No way, Torres replied immediately. My orders are to keep you alive until the trial. Just for a few minutes. With full safety protocols, Sujin stepped beside him. Taemin, even if you are right about its emotions, it is still dangerous. One wrong move and you could be killed. But if I am right, then we might be able to find a solution that does not involve anyone dying. The creature stood up slowly. Its full height was impressive even from a distance. But it did not display aggressive colors. Instead, it moved closer to the window and sat down again, bringing its head down to the same level as the watching humans. Then it did something that shocked everyone present. It raised one of its appendages and gently touched the window where Taemin was standing. The gesture was unmistakably peaceful. It wants to communicate, Taemin whispered. The Corvani guard stepped forward. Impossible. The beast knows only violence. It is bred for killing. Then why is it not trying to break through the window? Taemin asked. It is strong enough to damage these barriers if it wanted to escape. The guard had no answer. Taemin made his decision. Open the inner chamber. I am going in. Sir, I cannot allow that. You can and you will. I am the human champion. This is my preparation for the trial. Torres started to protest, but Sujin held up her hand. He is right. The trial rules give the champion the right to prepare however they choose. If this goes wrong, Torres said, I am not explaining it to Earth Command. It will not go wrong, Taman said with more confidence than he felt. The inner doors opened with a soft hiss. Taman stepped through alone, leaving his weapons and protective gear behind. He walked slowly toward the creature, his hands visible and empty. The beast watched him approach. Its colors shifted constantly, yellow, blue, green, back to yellow. Fear, curiosity, uncertainty. When Taman was 3 meters away, he stopped and sat down on the floor. The creature looked surprised. Its head tilted to one side. Hello, Taman said quietly. My name is Lee Taman. I do not want to hurt you. The grand arena of the Corvani was a sight that would stay in Taman's memory forever. The massive dome stretched high above his head like the ceiling of a cathedral made for giants. Thousands of Corvani warriors filled the seats, their red eyes glowing in the dim light. The noise of their voices was like the sound of distant thunder. In the center of the arena, artificial rocks and sparse vegetation created a landscape that looked like an alien world. The floor was covered with red sand that crunched under Taman's boots as he walked toward the middle of the fighting area. He wore only light clothing and a breathing mask. No armor, no weapons, no protective gear of any kind. The Corvani in the stands made sounds of confusion and disbelief. Some laughed. Others shouted what were probably insults in their harsh language. High Commander Vextar sat in a special viewing box high above the arena floor. His voice boomed through speakers placed around the dome. Human champion, do you truly understand what you face? This is your last chance to choose a different path. We will allow you to send another fighter in your place. Taman looked up at the viewing box and shook his head. I am ready. Then you will die with honor, Vextar replied. But you will still die. Across the arena, a massive gate began to open. The sound of grinding metal echoed through the dome. The crowd fell silent. Even the Corvani understood that they were about to witness something special. The creature emerged slowly from the darkness beyond the gate. In the bright lights of the arena, its crystalline plates caught and reflected the beams like a living rainbow. But the colors were wrong. Instead of the curious yellows and calm blues that Taman had seen before, the creature's shell showed deep reds and angry oranges. Something was different. Something was wrong. As the beast moved into the arena, Taman could see small devices attached to its neck and head. They pulsed with blue light in rhythm with its heartbeat. The neural implants that he had theorized about were real, and they were active. The creature's multiple eyes were wild and unfocused. Its movements were jerky and aggressive. This was not the same being that had gently touched the window of its cell just hours before. They turned on the control systems. Taman whispered to himself. The creature spotted him across the arena and let out a roar that shook dust from the ceiling. It began to move toward him with the smooth, deadly grace of a perfect predator. Its claws scraped against the rocky ground. Its eyes fixed on him with hungry intelligence that was not entirely its own. Taman did not run. He did not reach for weapons that were not there. Instead, he began walking slowly toward the approaching monster. The crowd erupted in shocked voices. Even the Corvani had never seen a champion approach their beast willingly. Most fighters tried to keep distance and use the terrain for protection. None had ever walked directly towards certain death. Nuri, Taman called out, using the name he had chosen for the creature. I know you are still in there. The beast hesitated for just a moment. Its head tilted slightly to one side. But then the implants pulsed brighter, and it resumed its deadly approach. When they were 20 meters apart, the creature suddenly charged. It moved faster than anything that large should be able to move. Its claws extended and its multiple eyes focused on Taman like targeting systems. Taman stood perfectly still. 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters. At the last possible second, the creature stopped. Its claws were close enough to touch Taman's chest. Its breath was hot against his face. But it did not strike. The arena fell completely silent. 10,000 Corvani warriors watched in amazement as their perfect weapon stood frozen just inches from its target. I know this is not who you really are, Taman said softly. I know they are hurting you, making you do things you do not want to do. The creature's colors shifted rapidly between red and blue. Pain and sadness mixed with artificial anger. Its body shook as it fought against the neural control systems. Taman slowly raised his right hand and placed it gently on the creature's crystalline head, just below one of the pulsing implants. "My name is Lee Taman," he said. "You do not have to fight anymore." The creature's eyes cleared for a moment. The wild hunger faded and was replaced by something that looked almost like gratitude. Its colors shifted to soft greens and yellows, but then the implants pulsed again, brighter than before. The creature jerked away from Taman's touch and roared in pain and rage. The artificial aggression flooded back into its system. In the viewing box, Mordak had his hand on a control device. "The neural stimulators are at maximum power," he called down to the arena. "The beast will complete its purpose." Taman looked up at the Corvani scientist with anger in his eyes. "You are torturing an intelligent being. This is not honor. This is cruelty." "It is victory," Vextar replied. "Nothing else matters." The creature advanced again, but its movements were wrong. It stumbled slightly, and its colors flickered like a broken display screen. The neural implants were pushing it beyond its natural limits. "Stop this," Taman shouted to the watching crowd. "Look what you are doing to this creature. This is not strength. This is the weakness of those who cannot win without cheating." Some of the younger Corvani in the stands began to murmur among themselves. They could see the implants now. They could see the artificial nature of the creature's aggression. Questions were being asked that had not been asked before. But Vextar was not interested in questions. "Finish it," he commanded. The creature lunged forward again. This time Taman moved aside at the last moment. The beast crashed into a pile of rocks, sending stones flying in all directions. When it tried to stand, its legs shook with exhaustion. "Please," Taman said, approaching the fallen creature. "Let me help you." He reached toward one of the neural implants. His knowledge of human technology was different from Corvani systems, but the basic principles were the same. There had to be a way to disable the devices. The creature watched him with its multiple eyes. For just a moment, its color showed clear blue, a plea for help. Taman found a small access panel on the largest implant. His fingers worked quickly to open it. Inside, he could see the pulsing circuits that were controlling the creature's brain. "Stop him," Vextar ordered. But before any guards could act, Taman found what he was looking for. A single main circuit that controlled all the others. He grabbed it and pulled hard. The implant sparked and went dark. The creature's entire body relaxed. The angry reds faded from its shell and were replaced by soft blues and greens. Its eyes focused clearly for the first time since entering the arena. It looked at Taman with gratitude and wonder. Then it did something that shocked everyone present. The creature bowed its great head in a gesture of respect and friendship. The arena erupted in chaos. Half the crowd was shouting in anger at what they saw as cheating. The other half was asking uncomfortable questions about what they had just witnessed. But Taman only had eyes for his new friend. "Hello, Nuri," he said quietly. "Now we can really meet." Taman stood in the center of the arena with his hand resting on Nuri's crystalline head. The massive creature had settled down beside him like a loyal dog, its colors now showing calm blues and peaceful greens. The contrast with its earlier violent behavior was impossible to ignore. High Commander Vextar's voice echoed through the arena, filled with rage. "What trickery is this? The trial is not complete. The human has not defeated our champion." "Your champion is right here," Taman replied, his voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. "And I have not defeated it. I have freed it." He gestured to the disabled neural implant that lay smoking in the red sand. "For how long have you been torturing this being? How many years has it suffered under your control?" Mordak activated his own speaking system from the viewing area. "The creature is a weapon, nothing more. It was created to serve the Corvani Empire. Created or captured and modified?" Taman walked closer to the arena walls so his voice would reach more of the watching crowd. "Let me tell you what I have learned about your perfect weapon." Nuri seemed to understand what Taman was trying to do. The creature moved to the center of the arena where everyone could see it clearly. Its colors shifted to bright yellows and whites. The patterns Taman had learned meant attention and communication. "First," Taman said, "this being is highly intelligent. Watch." He picked up a piece of broken stone and drew simple mathematical symbols in the sand. Addition, subtraction, basic geometry. Nuri studied the symbols for a moment, then used one of its claws to complete the equations correctly. A murmur ran through the crowd. Mathematics was considered a sign of true intelligence by most species. Second, Taman continued, it understands complex spatial relationships. He pointed to different sections of the arena. Nuri responded by using its claws to draw a perfect map in the sand, showing the layout of the dome, the seating areas, even the hidden passages that the guards used. The murmur grew louder. Some Corvani were shouting questions. Others were demanding answers from their leaders. Third, Taman said, raising his voice, it has been trying to communicate with you for years. You just never listened. Nuri moved to a clear area of sand and began drawing more complex symbols. These were not mathematical equations or maps. They were star charts, detailed drawings showing solar systems and planetary orbits. The level of astronomical knowledge was incredible. But then the creature drew something else. A single star system with one planet marked by dark colors. Around that planet it drew smaller symbols that looked like ships. Corvani ships, it is showing us its home world, Taman said quietly. The world where your empire found it. The creature continued drawing. It showed the ships landing. It showed smaller figures being taken from the surface. It showed them being brought to other worlds and modified with artificial devices. The arena fell completely silent as the full meaning became clear. You did not create a weapon, Taman said, his voice carrying to every corner of the dome. You stole an intelligent being from its home. You put machines in its brain to make it violent. You turned a peaceful creature into your perfect killer through torture and pain. Some of the younger Corvani in the crowd began to stand up. Their own colors were shifting to what Taman recognized as shock and shame. They had not known the true origin of their great weapon. But Vextar was not finished. Even if what you say is true, the creature has served its purpose for decades. It has brought honor to the Corvani Empire. Honor? Taman's voice turned hard. Where is the honor in forcing a prisoner to fight against its will? Where is the honor in using artificial pain to drive a creature to violence? He walked over to the broken implant and held it up for all to see. Your scientists put this device directly into its brain. Every time it tried to resist your commands, this machine sent waves of agony through its nervous system. Every time it showed mercy or hesitation, it was punished with torture. Nuri made a soft sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of deep sadness and old pain. Show them, Taman said gently. Show them what they did to you. The creature moved to a different area of the arena. Using its claws with surgical precision, it began to draw detailed diagrams in the sand. These showed the internal structure of its own body, the natural neural pathways, and the artificial modifications that had been forced into its brain. Dr. Martinez, watching from the human observation area, activated her own communication system. The diagrams are anatomically correct. This creature has detailed knowledge of neurology and surgical procedures. It knows exactly what was done to it. Mordak's voice cut through the growing noise of the crowd. The modifications were necessary. Without them, the creature would have been useless in combat. Because it did not want to fight, Taman replied. Because violence is not its nature. To prove his point, he walked over and sat down next to Nuri. The massive creature immediately curled its body around him protectively, like a parent protecting a child. Its colors showed soft pinks and golds, affection and care. This is its true nature, Taman said. Peaceful, protective, intelligent. Everything your empire destroyed with its machines and its cruelty. The crowd was becoming divided. The older warriors remained silent, unwilling to challenge their leaders. But many younger Corvani were talking among themselves in excited voices. Some were even pointing accusingly toward the leadership viewing box. Ambassador Helnos, who had remained quiet throughout the trial, finally stood up. His voice was calm but carried clearly through the arena. High Commander, he said, the human speaks of our code of honor. What does the code say about the treatment of prisoners? Vextar's eyes flashed with anger. The code applies to Corvani, not to alien creatures. The code applies to all intelligent beings under our protection, Helnos replied firmly. That has been the law for 1,000 years. Other voices joined the debate. The arena filled with arguments and discussions as Corvani tried to understand what they had just learned. Their perfect weapon was actually a victim. Their great victories had been built on torture and slavery. But Taman was not finished. He stood up and walked to the center of the arena again. There is something else you need to know, he called out. Nuri is not the only one. The creature began drawing again. This time it showed multiple star systems, multiple planets, and on each one it drew symbols representing others of its kind. How many? Taman asked softly. Nuri held up several of its appendages, displaying numbers that shocked even Taman. Dozens, maybe hundreds of intelligent beings, all captured and modified to serve as weapons for the Corvani Empire. The arena erupted in chaos. Some Corvani demanded immediate action to free the other prisoners. Others argued that the Empire's security depended on their biological weapons program. The noise was deafening. High Commander Vextar stood up in his viewing box, his voice booming over the crowd. Enough. The trial continues. The creature has shown weakness by submitting to the human. This proves that humans are superior to our weapons. We will withdraw our forces and honor the agreement. But Ambassador Helnos shook his head. The trial was to determine which species was stronger. The human has proven that strength comes from understanding and compassion, not from violence and cruelty. By our own code, he has achieved the highest form of victory. I do not accept this interpretation. Then you no longer speak for the Corvani Empire, Helnos replied. The council will vote on this matter. The political battle was just beginning. But in the center of the arena, Taman knelt beside his new friend and spoke softly. Do not worry, Nuri. We will find the others. We will free them all. The creature's colors shifted to bright golds and whites. For the first time in decades, it had hope. The council chamber of the Corvani Empire had not seen such heated debate in over a century. Representatives from across their territory filled the massive room, their voices creating a constant buzz of argument and discussion. At the center of it all sat the High Council, 5 ancient Corvani who would decide the fate of 2 species. Taman stood in the witness area with Sujin beside him. Nuri had been allowed to remain close by, though several guards watched the creature nervously. Without the neural implants, Nuri was calm and peaceful, but the guards still remembered decades of seeing it as a deadly weapon. High Commander Vextar paced back and forth as he made his case to the council. The humans used trickery to win the trial, he declared. They disabled our weapon instead of defeating it in honest combat. This is cheating, not victory. The human champion faced your creature without weapons or armor, Ambassador Helnos replied from his own speaking position. He used only intelligence and courage. If that is not honorable combat, then what is? Elder Kothvar, the oldest member of the High Council, raised his hand for silence. His voice was like grinding stone, aged by centuries of leadership. High Commander, he said slowly, you claim the human cheated, but our records show that you activated neural control implants during the trial. Is this not also cheating? The implants are part of the creature's normal function, Vextar replied. Like weapons are part of a warrior's equipment. But the creature is not equipment, said Elder Felnus, another council member. The human has proven that it is an intelligent being. Our code of honor forbids the use of torture devices against thinking creatures. The debate continued for hours. Taman listened to argument after argument, some supporting the humans and others demanding continued warfare. But he noticed that the younger Corvani representatives were mostly on his side, while the older military leaders supported Vextar. During a break in the formal proceedings, Mordek approached Taman cautiously. The Corvani scientist looked tired and ashamed. I owe you an apology, human, he said quietly. For many years I believed we were creating the perfect weapon. I never considered that we might be torturing an innocent being. What matters now is what we do next, Taman replied. Can you help us find the others? Others? Nuri showed us that there are more of its kind being used as weapons throughout your empire. We need to locate them and remove their control implants. Mordek was silent for a long moment. There are research facilities on 17 different worlds. Each one houses between 3 and 12 subjects. The total number is... He paused, clearly struggling with the magnitude of what he was admitting. How many? Sujin asked gently. 143 confirmed subjects. There may be more in facilities that report directly to military command. Taman felt sick. Nearly 150 intelligent beings, all suffering the same torture that Nuri had endured. All forced to fight against their peaceful nature. We have to free them, he said. That would require shutting down the entire biological weapons program. Mordek replied. The military will never agree to that voluntarily. Then we make it not voluntary, Sujin said firmly. Elder Kothvar called for the session to resume. The representatives took their places again, but Taman could see that something had changed during the break. Several younger Corvani were now sitting with the human supporters instead of maintaining neutral positions. Ambassador Helnos stood to address the council. "Honored elders," he began, "we face a choice that will define the future of the Corvani Empire. Do we continue down the path of conquest through cruelty, or do we choose a new way forward based on honor and cooperation?" "Pretty words," Vextar interrupted, "but the galaxy is not a peaceful place. Our enemies will not hesitate to use whatever weapons they can find. If we give up our biological weapons, we make ourselves vulnerable. Or we make ourselves stronger," Taman said, stepping forward without permission to speak. "May I address the council?" Elder Kothvar studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You speak of enemies," Taman said, looking directly at Vextar. "But how many enemies has your empire created through its actions? How many species have joined coalitions against you because they fear becoming your next victims?" He gestured toward Nuri, who was resting peacefully nearby. "This creature's people were not your enemies before you enslaved them. They were simply living their lives on their own world. Now their entire species has reason to hate the Corvani Empire." "The weak are always conquered by the strong," Vexitar replied. "That is the way of nature. But what if the weak could become your allies instead of your enemies?" Taman asked. "What if you gained friends instead of creating hatred?" He walked closer to the council platform. "Humans have a different approach to conflict. We try to understand our opponents before we fight them. Sometimes we discover that fighting is not necessary at all." Elder Felnas leaned forward with interest. "Explain." "We have encountered dozens of species that seemed hostile at first. Pirates who attacked our ships, traders who tried to cheat us, even military forces that threatened our colonies. But in many cases, we found that their aggression came from fear or desperation, not true malice." Taman thought of specific examples from his own experience. The Centauri raiders who were attacking human merchant ships turned out to be refugees from a plague-devastated world. They needed resources to save their families. Instead of destroying them, we helped them find a new home planet and trade agreements that benefited everyone. And now the Centauri are among humanity's closest allies," Sujin added. "The Vegan Collective seemed like a threat when they first entered our space with massive fleets," Taman continued. "But they were actually explorers looking for new trade partners. Today our three species work together on projects that benefit all of us." Elder Kothvar made a sound that might have been interest. "You suggest that the Corvani Empire could follow this path?" "I suggest that you could be stronger through friendship than through fear," Taman replied. "Every species you conquer is a potential ally that you destroy instead. Every world you devastate is a source of resources and knowledge that you waste. And what of the creatures we have?" "Modified?" asked Elder Felnas hesitantly. Nuri suddenly stood up and approached the council platform. The guards tensed, but the creature moved slowly and peacefully. It stopped a respectful distance away and began drawing symbols in the dust on the chamber floor. "What is it doing?" Elder Kothvar asked. Taman studied the symbols. "It is showing you what its people could offer as allies instead of weapons." The drawings were incredibly detailed. Star charts showing resource-rich systems, diagrams of advanced biotechnology, mathematical formulas that even Taman could not fully understand. "My people are scientists," Taman translated as Nuri continued drawing. "We study life and genetics. We could help heal diseases. We could improve food production. We could teach you things about biology that would advance your civilization by centuries. All they want in return is freedom," Sujin added. "Freedom to live, to learn, to choose their own path." The chamber fell silent as the council studied Nuri's drawings. The implications were staggering. The Corvani had been using some of the galaxy's most advanced biological scientists as simple weapons, wasting their potential for knowledge and discovery. Elder Kothvar finally spoke. "What exactly are you proposing, humans?" "A joint mission to locate and free all the imprisoned creatures," Taman said. "Human medical technology can safely remove the neural implants. The creatures can then choose whether to return to their home worlds or join a new alliance between our three species." "Three species?" "Humans, Corvani, and the people that Nuri represents, working together instead of fighting, sharing knowledge instead of destroying it, building something better than any of us could create alone." High Commander Vextar stood up angrily. "The Council cannot seriously be considering this madness. We are warriors, not caretakers for alien pets." "We are Corvani," Elder Kothvar replied firmly. And the code of honor that has guided us for millennia says that true strength comes from justice, not cruelty. The human has shown us a mirror, and we do not like what we see reflected there. He looked around at his fellow council members. I call for a vote. All in favor of ending the biological weapons program and joining the humans in their rescue mission? 3 hands rose immediately. A 4th hesitated, then slowly joined them. The motion carries, Elder Kothvar announced. The Corvani Empire will honor its ancient code and choose the path of justice. Vexitar's roar of rage echoed through the chamber, but it was too late. The decision had been made. Nuri's colors shifted to brilliant golds and whites. For the first time in decades, its people would be free. 6 months after the trial in the Grand Arena, Taman stood on the observation deck of the Joint Research Station orbiting Kepler 442b. The view outside showed something that would have been impossible to imagine just a year ago. Human ships, Corvani vessels, and the elegant curved ships of the Eternari people working together in perfect harmony. The Eternari. That was the true name of Nuri's species, and it meant those who nurture life in their ancient language. The name fit perfectly. In just half a year, their knowledge had revolutionized medicine, agriculture, and biotechnology for both humans and Corvani. The last rescue mission returned this morning, Sujin said as she joined him at the window. That makes all 167 Eternari accounted for. The final research facility has been shut down. Taman nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The number had been even higher than Mordak's original estimate. Some of the creatures had been held in secret military installations for decades, their existence hidden even from other Corvani leaders. How many chose to stay with the Alliance? He asked. 83 are working on various joint projects. 42 returned to their home worlds to help rebuild their civilization. The rest are still deciding what they want to do. Through the window, Taman could see one of the Eternari ships docking with the station. These vessels were works of art, living ships grown rather than built, their hulls shifting colors like the creatures that created them. The technology was beyond anything humans or Corvani had ever imagined. Any word from Nuri? Sujin asked. Still on Korvax Prime, working with the healing centers. The Eternari there are helping injured Corvani soldiers recover from old battle wounds. Nuri says the work gives meaning to all those years of forced violence. The door to the observation deck opened, and Ambassador Helnos entered. The Corvani diplomat had become a close friend over the past months, working tirelessly to integrate the former biological weapons into productive roles. Taman, Helnos said, I have news from the Corvani High Council. The vote was unanimous. What vote? The Council has officially changed our military doctrine. From now on, the Corvani Empire will focus on exploration and protection rather than conquest. We are also establishing a new branch of government dedicated to scientific cooperation with allied species. Taman smiled. Vextar must be furious. Former High Commander Vextar has been reassigned to a research station studying defensive technologies. He is not pleased, but he is beginning to understand that strength comes in many forms. Sujin laughed. I still cannot believe he volunteered to work with Eternari biotechnology specialists. Elder Kothvar can be very persuasive when he wants to be, Helnos replied. He told Vextar that learning new forms of strength was the most honorable path for a warrior. The 3 of them stood in comfortable silence, watching the ships move through space like a dance. Human engineering combined with Corvani manufacturing and Eternari biological systems had created vessels more advanced than any single species could have built alone. Speaking of new projects, Helnos said, I have a proposal for both of you. What kind of proposal? Taman asked. The Council wants to establish a new organization, a group dedicated to finding other species that might be suffering under oppressive governments or facing extinction. We would offer them the same choice we gave the Eternari, freedom and the chance to join our alliance. Sujin raised an eyebrow. You want to create a rescue organization for the entire galaxy? Why not? Helnos replied. The 3 species working together have capabilities that far exceed what any of us possessed alone. We could make a real difference, Taman thought about it. The idea appealed to him. After seeing what the Corvani had done to the Eternari, he wondered how many other intelligent species were suffering in similar situations throughout the galaxy. It would be dangerous work, he said finally. Not every government would be as willing to change as the Corvani were. But think of the lives we could save, Sujin added. Think of the knowledge and friendship we could gain. Before Helnos could respond, the communication system activated. Nuri's translated voice came through the speakers. Transmitted from Korvax Prime. Taman, my friend. I have exciting news to share with you. I am listening. Nuri. The healing centers have been so successful that the Corvani government wants to establish similar facilities on 12 other worlds. They are asking if more Eternari would be willing to help with the project. That is wonderful news. But there is more, Nuri continued. Our deep space monitoring systems have detected distress signals from a star system near the outer rim. The signals appear to be coming from an unknown species that may be under attack. Taman looked at Sujin and Helnos. All three of them were thinking the same thing. How far away? Helnos asked. Approximately 2 weeks travel time with our fastest ships. And the nature of the distress signals? They appear to be mathematical sequences repeated in patterns that suggest intelligence. Someone is calling for help. Taman made his decision quickly. Nuri, how soon can you meet us at the station? I can depart Korvax Prime within the hour. Why? Because we have work to do. 2 days later, a small fleet departed from the Joint Research Station. 3 ships representing the alliance between humans, Corvani, and Eternari. Their mission was to investigate the distress signals and offer help to whoever was sending them. Taman stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the stars streak past as they entered hyperspace. Beside him, Nuri's colors showed excited yellows and confident blues. The creature that had once been forced to fight was now choosing to heal and protect. What do you think we will find? Sujin asked from the communication station. I do not know, Taman replied. But whatever it is, they will not face it alone. Behind them, the Joint Research Station grew smaller until it disappeared among the stars. But the work they had started there would continue. Other teams were already preparing for similar missions throughout the galaxy. The choice that Taman had made in the arena, to befriend rather than destroy, had changed everything. What began as a trial by combat between 2 species had become the foundation for something much larger. A growing alliance of worlds working together to protect the weak and share knowledge. As their ship traveled toward the unknown distress signals, Taman thought about how different things might have been if he had chosen violence instead of understanding. The Eternari would still be slaves. The Corvani would still be conquerors. Humanity would have gained territory but lost the chance to be part of something greater. Thank you, Nuri said quietly, its colors showing deep appreciation. For what? For seeing who I really was instead of what they had made me? Taman smiled and placed his hand gently on his friend's crystalline head. That is what friends do for each other. Through the viewports, the stars continued to stream past as their small fleet carried hope toward whatever lay ahead in the darkness of space. The story of the deadly creature and the human who chose friendship was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the first rescue mission, and the alliance had grown beyond anything Taman could have imagined. What started as 3 species working together had become a confederation of 27 different civilizations spread across 12 star systems. Taman walked through the corridors of New Haven Station, the massive space city that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Protection Alliance. The hallways bustled with beings of every shape and size imaginable. Tall, graceful creatures with feathered wings worked alongside short, sturdy people with crystalline skin. Beings of pure energy communicated with liquid form entities through specialized translation devices. Director Lee called a familiar voice behind him. Taman turned to see Captain Jiwoo approaching with a data pad in her hands. She was one of the newer human recruits, a former military officer who had joined the Alliance after hearing about their work. The morning briefing is ready, she said. We have updates from 7 active missions and 3 new distress signals that need investigation. Taman nodded and followed her toward the main command center. The vast room was filled with holographic displays showing star maps, ship positions, and communication feeds from across known space. At the center of it all sat the main coordination table, where representatives from each member species worked together to plan and monitor rescue operations. Nuri was already there, its colors showing the focused blues and greens that meant deep concentration. Over the years, it had become one of the Alliance's most skilled mission planners, able to think through complex problems that stumped other species. Good morning, my friend, Taman said as he approached. Good morning, Taman, Nuri replied, its colors shifting to warmer yellows of happiness. I have been reviewing the situation reports from our field teams. Sujin looked up from her own station. She now served as the Alliance's chief diplomat, specializing in first contact protocols with newly discovered species. The Helix Nebula mission was a complete success, she reported. The Zephyrian people have agreed to join the Alliance. They were being forced to mine dangerous crystals by the Dominion Empire, but our intervention freed over 2 million workers. Any resistance from the Dominion forces? Taman asked. Initially, yes, but when they realized they were facing the combined fleets of 27 species, they decided to negotiate instead of fight. The Zephyrians will be compensated for decades of forced labor, and the Dominion has agreed to reform their colonial policies. Ambassador Helnos entered the command center carrying news from the Corvani Council. His people had changed dramatically over the past 5 years, evolving from a purely military culture into one that valued scientific advancement and peaceful cooperation. The Council has approved funding for 12 new hospital ships, he announced. The Eternari medical teams will staff them, with Corvani engineering support and human coordination systems. Where will they be deployed? Asked Nuri. The Outer Rim territories mostly. There are still several conflicts in that region where civilian populations need medical aid. Taman smiled. The hospital ships were one of the Alliance's most successful innovations. By providing medical care to all sides in a conflict, they often managed to reduce tensions and create opportunities for peace negotiations. Speaking of the Outer Rim, Captain Jiwoo said, we received an interesting message from the Sentinel Republic. They want to discuss a formal alliance agreement. This was significant news. The Sentinel Republic was one of the largest military powers in the galaxy, controlling over 40 star systems. They had initially viewed the Galactic Protection Alliance with suspicion, seeing it as a potential threat to their authority. What changed their mind? Sujin asked. According to their message, they are facing a crisis that requires our specific expertise. Something about a biological weapon that has gotten out of control. Taman and Nuri exchanged glances. They had encountered similar situations before. Weapons programs that had gone wrong, usually involving the torture or enslavement of intelligent creatures. I think we should investigate personally, Taman said. This sounds like it might be another case like the original Eternari situation. Agreed, Nuri replied. My people have developed new techniques for safely removing neural control systems. If the Sentinels have been using similar methods, we could help. 3 days later, a small diplomatic fleet departed New Haven Station bound for Sentinel space. The lead ship carried Taman, Sujin, Nuri, and a team of specialists from various Alliance species. As they traveled through hyperspace, Taman reflected on how much had changed since that first meeting in the Corvani arena. The Alliance had rescued over 300,000 beings from various forms of oppression. Some were slaves, others were prisoners of war, and many were intelligent creatures being used as weapons or tools by more powerful species. Each rescue operation had led to new friendships and new knowledge that benefited everyone. But the work was far from over. The galaxy was a vast place, and there were still countless civilizations that had never heard of the Alliance. Some were peaceful but isolated. Others were aggressive and expanding. A few were in desperate need of help but had no way to call for it. Taman, Nuri said, interrupting his thoughts. I have been analyzing the Sentinel data transmissions. I believe their situation is more serious than they initially reported. How serious? The biological weapon they mention appears to be an entire species that has been modified for warfare. But something went wrong with the control systems. Instead of following orders, the creatures have begun acting independently. Are they attacking the Sentinels? No, that is what makes this interesting. According to the data, they are trying to communicate with their captors. They want to negotiate for freedom. Sujin looked up from her diplomatic preparation notes. That sounds familiar. Very familiar, Taman agreed. It sounds like another group of intelligent beings who have been forced into military service against their will. When their ship arrived at the Sentinel homeworld, they were met by a massive fleet of warships. But instead of threatening gestures, the Sentinel vessels formed an honor guard that escorted them to the planet's orbital station. General Kalen of the Sentinel Republic met them at the docking bay. He was a tall, imposing figure with the bearing of a career military officer, but his expression showed worry and uncertainty. Thank you for coming, he said as they disembarked. We have a situation that is beyond our experience to handle. Tell us what happened, Sujin said in her most diplomatic tone. For the past 20 years, we have been using biological warriors in our conflicts with neighboring powers. They were created from specimens we discovered on a remote world. Highly intelligent, incredibly strong, completely loyal to our commands. What kind of control systems did you use? Nuri asked. General Kalen looked uncomfortable. Neural implants, pain stimulation, standard conditioning protocols, the same methods that most military powers use for biological weapons. Taman felt a familiar anger building in his chest. Another species had been enslaved and tortured for military purposes, but he kept his voice calm. And now something has changed? 3 weeks ago, all the implants suddenly stopped working. Every biological warrior in our entire program simultaneously broke free of their conditioning. We expected them to attack us in revenge, but they did not. No, instead they gathered together and sent us a message. They want to meet with our leadership. They say they have important information to share about threats facing this entire region of space. General Kalen led them through the station to a secure conference room. Through the windows, they could see the planet below and several moons in the distance. On one of those moons, he explained, was where the biological warriors were now living freely. They could have escaped, he said. Our ships cannot match their vessels in speed or maneuverability. But they chose to stay. They say they want to help protect this star system from something much more dangerous than our local conflicts. What kind of threat? Taman asked. They call it the Harvester Fleet. According to their message, it is a massive armada that moves from system to system, completely destroying all life before moving on to the next target. They claim it is heading this way and will arrive within 6 months. Nuri's colors shifted to worried oranges and reds. Have your long-range sensors detected anything unusual? Nothing yet. But the biological warriors insist that the harvesters use technology that cannot be detected until they are very close. They also claim to know how to fight them. Sujin leaned forward with interest. How would they know about this threat? According to their message, their homeworld was destroyed by the harvesters 50 years ago. They were refugees who escaped in the few ships that managed to flee. We found them drifting in space and assumed they were primitive beings. But they were actually survivors of an advanced civilization, Taman said, understanding the situation now. It appears so. They allowed us to capture them because they needed resources and technology to rebuild. They submitted to our control systems because they were planning to eventually ask for our help in fighting the harvesters. And now they are free to explain the real situation, Nuri added. General Kalen nodded. They want to meet with representatives of the Galactic Protection Alliance. They say our combined force